A very good morning and welcome to the third hour of the agenda this Sunday morning. Another leading story, the COSATU's address to the media on the latest regarding e-tolls, and we will continue to unpack that address during this hour. Let's get into the show.
Is committed to the user pay principle because it is the most efficient and effective way to ensure that the direct benefits of services are paid for by those who use them directly.
Let there be no confusion. No one must confuse us. We stand by the resolution of our conference. The e-tolls are not part of the future of this province. We will work out how to pay the debt of fixing those roads, but the e-tolls are not part of that future.
As COSATU in Gauteng, we are very concerned and disappointed by conflicting messages from those that are deployed in government on the e-tolls. The ANC in Gauteng took resolutions against the e-tolls in its recent provincial conference. The Premier of Gauteng and the ANC chairperson has said on numerous occasions that he was against the e-tolls. The president of the ANC, while he was still the deputy president of the country, also indicated that a solution was required for the e-tolls. First, it was the Minister of Transport who contradicted the resolution of the ANC on the e-tolls, and now the Minister of Transport has joined in to defy the ANC policies of the ANC on this matter. These ministers must smell the coffee and realize that every time they open their mouth on e-tolls, the ANC loses hundreds of votes. COSATU is angry with the new finance minister's announcement in a midterm budget speech that government will continue with the current system of e-tolls, which represent a daylight robbery to the people of Gauteng. We think that the minister has already been captured by the dominant new liberal ideology within the Department of Finance. We call the president and the ANC to rein in these ministers who defy to toe the party line. We hope that the minister will bring in some fresh air and articulate a progressive and developmental perspective. However, he has decided to side with the rich at the expense of the poor and the working class in our country. We are quite convinced that he will continue to unleash war to the workers and the working class as part of the continuation of government policies to please capital and neoliberals. There are also threats as we speak to cut the public sector wages, and our experience has taught us that jobs of our members may also be on the line in this regard. We will not fold our arms and clap hands under such circumstances, and the working class should brave itself for serious battles that are lying ahead. We will continue to mobilize the society and the entire working class to remain vigilant and fight any attempts to downsize or right-size the public sector. We have also noted attempts by the Department of Transport and Central to force our members and the entire people of Gauteng to pay for the e-toll bills through prosecution by the courts. It is our considered view that the current justice system can't cope with the criminal cases, and to add the e-tolling will just be adding an unnecessary burden to the already burdened system. We are still calling for the people of Gauteng not to pay for e-tolls and also not to buy the e-tax. We continue to reject the user pay principle as a funding model for the improvement of the roads, as in our view, government has sufficient resources through petrol levy to pay for the road infrastructure. The user pay model is and it will continue to suffocate our people in Gauteng and add an additional tax burden which will benefit foreign companies with little benefits to our economy. The government must continue to pay a special focus on developing a public transport system that will benefit our communities and the workers and the working class. We believe that we've got resources to achieve this objective. However, we lack the political will by the Department of Transport. The public transport system that is affordable, accessible, reliable, safe and intermodal is the only solution to the current challenges facing our economy. We think that investing in building and creating a public transport system and its infrastructure could help our economy to reindustrialize and contribute to the growth of the economy. It has a great potential to provide and create jobs for our people as compared to the tolling of Gauteng roads. We think that we have lost a great opportunities in this regard. We are hence excited that the plan to manufacture trains in the province of Gauteng, as recently announced, has been long overdue. We think that if we could also manufacture buses in our country, and Gauteng in particular, such could help to stimulate growth in our economy. We could reduce the level of unemployment and poverty. Our members still continue to be exposed to unsafe and unreliable transport system, as witnessed by a number of train accidents which occur every month and result in death of breadwinners. Many of our members currently are at the brutal receiving end of the failing transport system because they've been losing jobs because of late coming as a result of the unsafe and reliable public transport system. They are unable to sustain their families because of ever-increasing cost of commuting and the cost of living. Our members die on their way to work due to the unreliable and coordinated transport system. Gauteng as an economic hub of South Africa needs a working, accessible, safe, reliable, intermodal, coordinated, and affordable transport system. Our provincial and national Congress further resolved on intensifying the campaign against e-tolls and calling for the public transport system that is safe, reliable, accessible, and intermodal. The electorate in Gauteng have joined COSATU and demonstrated their rejection of the e-tolls. We have worked tirelessly to explain and rally all sectors of society behind this particular noble campaign. We are also encouraged that within the alliance there is a convergence in the rejection of the e-tolls in favor of the public transport system. We applaud the stand that has been taken by the ANC in this province and also its premier in Gauteng, which has been very consistent and principled in relation to this particular question. We will support him in defending the interests of our economy and its people. It is against this background that we have filed Section 77 for a stay away on the 2nd of November 2018, this coming Friday, for a march to deliver a memorandum to the President in Tshwane. This will be a protected strike. We'll also be having a campaign every month starting from this month to highlight the challenges that are faced by our members in regard to the public transport system. We'll, together with our alliance partners and other various sectors of the society, fight until the end, fight until the system has been scrapped. It is in this regard, therefore, that we are calling upon our members and we are also calling upon the public on Friday, on the 2nd, to join COSATU and his alliance partners as we take the march to the highest office of the country, so that we could be able to resolve this matter amicably.
Well, there you have it. COSATU is making a call to Gauteng citizens to march to Pretoria this Friday, the 2nd. And we're now joined by Professor Dirk Kotze via Skype for analysis on this conversation. Professor Kotze, it's a Sunday morning, so we really value that you were able to make the time. The message was relayed by Dumisani Dakile, but do you think that this is a new COSATU of Zingisalosi that's taking charge of socio-economic conversations, something that has been missing in recent history?
Specifically on the point of e-tolls, COSATU is quite consistent about it. They were part of the same position in 2016 with the local government election. They joined this broad alliance that was established around Gauteng and other civil society organizations that opposed the e-toll system. So it has quite an history from a COSATU point of view. And I think the reason why it is now seen as if it is a new initiative is the fact that the Minister of Finance praised it in his speech and in the medium-term budget policy speech, and therefore it's on the agenda again. But it's in fact for COSATU quite an old issue already.
They say that the working class should brave themselves for a battle, that COSATU is angry with the finance minister. He's captured by the new liberal ideology and he sides with the rich. Is the minister missing the mark in terms of public sentiment about e-tolls?
I think with respect to e-tolls, yes, there's a lot of resistance, not only from the working people, but the middle-class persons and even those in higher positions. There's a general understanding or general feeling that the e-toll system is not, first of all, in principle, is not acceptable, but also the way in which it is managed is problematic. And therefore, there is not necessarily the confidence in the system that it is reliable and that the accounts that were sent out are actually accurate accounts. We've heard in the past of some accounts that were completely ridiculous. So I think that undermines also the credibility of the system, irrespective of the principled opposition that exists against it. We saw in the 2016 local government election how detrimental it was for the ANC, and many interpreted their losses in the two main metros, Johannesburg and Tshwane, as partly as a result of the resistance or the unpopularity of the e-toll system.
We played a clip of the minister saying that the user pay principle is working quite okay. But Dumisani Dakile there was saying that it's suffocating the people of Gauteng and it's just not working. What are your thoughts on this, Professor?
Well, the e-toll system is not working. I think everyone can agree on that. But the toll system at the national level, if we look at the national highways, the N1, the N2, the N3, all those, the Ns, the national roads, they are all tolled roads, and they are working quite, I would say, quite effectively. There's not open demonstrations against them, but it is obviously the frequency of them being used by the ordinary persons and not just the big trucks. That's much less. So the impact on the, I would say, the average person in South Africa, if we look at that type of tolling, then it is less than if those that are living, for example, in Gauteng and use it on a daily basis.
When you listened to Minister Mboweni's address during the week on the medium-term budget policy statement, how do you separate the conversation between the national tolls that you're talking about and specifically the e-tolls in Gauteng?
Well, he didn't make that distinction, and I think that is part of the problem, why it just made a very general comment about that, and therefore he didn't indicate whether he was talking about the national tolling system, or specifically the e-tolls. I think one can read in between the lines that we was possibly thinking more about the e-tolls than the national system. But it is, I think from his point of view, is the fact that he presented a very tough, tight, interim budget. As the COSATU mentioned, that he also referred to the reduction in the cost of the public sector salaries, all very controversial. And I think that is possibly the main point that COSATU focused on, and the e-tolling is in a sense an additional item in order to set up a situation in where there's certainly going to be a confrontation between them and Minister Mboweni on several matters. But I think the first one and the main focus will be on the downscaling of the public budget on civil servants.
Do you agree with COSATU that the motorist is already being charged multiple times for one service?
That's indeed so, and I think in the last number of months the focus was very much on the petrol price and the taxes added to the oil price and other prices of production that are all forms of taxation or levies, and that in a sense means that we have all sorts of indirect form of taxing together with the increase in VAT. So I think from the point of view of the public in terms of the indirect form of taxing over and above personal income tax or commercial tax has increased a lot. And I think there is a general sense that we have reached a threshold with that, and it cannot continue in terms of the regular increases, especially with the petrol price. And we've seen now this the 1 month, I think it was in August, where there was actually no increase, the intervention by government. So clearly there's an understanding that the public's threshold in terms of regular increases, that we've reached that threshold.
They also complain that government, in a way, it's not doing its work by providing safe transport system, public transport system, in a way forcing people towards buying cars perhaps. Is that a real concern?
No, the public transport sector is a very complex one, and most of it is not known to the public. For example, the fact that government gives huge subsidies to the train and bus services in South Africa. They don't do it to the taxi industry, partly because the taxi industry is private, and it is not regulated enough in order to be able to do it. So there's a huge input already from government side in terms of trying to keep the cost of public transport low. the problem of safety, and we see often nowadays the bus accidents, for example, or taxi accidents. I think that is something very prominent in the minds of many people, that part has become very problematic, together with, for example, in the Western Cape, the burning of trains.
Yeah.
Now, there's all sorts of interpretations of that, why that is happening. It looks like it's organized. It is not just happening because of an accident or some incident, but as if there's agenda behind that. So there's much more that one has to investigate in order to understand what are the different considerations within the public transport and its relationship with the private transport or the taxi industry, or even the sort of the semi-private industry. So from that point of view, I think it is something which has to be considered, because there's also contesting interest within the public transport and the taxi industry. And that's very difficult to reconcile. Otherwise, for example, I think we would have had much more of railway services and bus services if it wasn't for the pressure, for example, from the taxi industry.
So, Prof, looking ahead to Friday, the 2nd of November, Dumisani Dakile gave a clear instruction: do not pay the e-tolls, do not buy the e-tags. Is that a wise statement?
Well, I think it happens already. So it's not something really new that's going to take place. And I think those who have in the past boycotted the e-toll paying system are going to continue with that. And those who have done it will possibly think twice, but that's by far the minority of the motorists who are paying their e-tolls. So I don't think it's going to have a major impact in terms of what we are going to see on the ground, or the practical effect of that for example, for SANRAL and others.
Support for stayaways and marches has been said to be dwindling. Do you think the November 2nd march that has been called for by COSATU will succeed?
I think this is an issue which doesn't affect many people directly. It does affect, for example, taxi owners, but it does not affect necessarily the passengers. Many of these transport systems are in any case exempt from the e-tolls. Most of the taxis are exempt from the e-tolls. Public buses are exempt from the e-tolls. So they are in any case not affected by whether there's an e-toll system or not.
Well, we thank you so much for your time, but I'm also going to take advantage of the fact that we have you here, Prof. It's been quite a busy week in terms of trying to revive the economy of the country. We had the budget medium-term speech in Parliament during the week. We also had the South African Investment Conference, but also looking ahead to next week, the President is going to Germany for the G20 meeting. What sort of conversations do you think we should be having about South Africa's efforts to revive its economy?
Well, I think, first of all, the medium-term budget speech was a very conservative one, in a sense. That's one that embraced President Ramaphosa's stimulus plan. He set it out quite systematically again. But he was very much almost a disciplinarian of the government, of trying to reduce costs as much as possible, of introducing new discipline in the state-owned enterprises. But now with this investment conference, which I think went beyond the expectations of most people, certainly that of President Ramaphosa, one could see how excited he was. The fact that there's more than 290 billion rand that were pledged by the different companies, I think that creates a new sense of that there's a path out of the current situation, out of the slow growth, out of the current recession also. So I think for many people it's giving new hope that there is a way. We have become too used to this, to the feeling almost that there was no solution to the issues of South Africa, whether it is unemployment or inequality or just the slow growth in the economy. I think what we see now is a number of plans. It is not, none of them are short-term plans. So I think there must not be any form of expectation that we are going to see changes in the next 6 months, for example, but it is longer term, more structural plans ultimately. And I think if some of them can take root and it is turned around that the growth is consistently above 1% GDP, then it will slowly start to produce or have spin-off effects. And I think this is the problem at the moment is that the economy cannot break through that ceiling almost that developed of 1%, plus the fact that whatever is happening doesn't create jobs, it actually loses jobs, whether it is in the form of the mining sector or the agricultural sectors and so on. So the reverse trend at the moment is taking place, and so it's going to call for a lot of effort on the government side, plus the private sector. And I think what was sort of encouraging is the contribution, participation of the public sector in this investment conference.
Professor Dirk Kotze, we totally, absolutely value your thoughts and your time. Thank you so much for talking to us this morning.
Thanks very much.
All right, Professor Dirk Kotze, they're talking to us about COSATU's